They say words are the sharpest swords, unseen but cutting deeper than steel. I used to think that power lay in speaking, in being heard above the noise. But what if the real power was in silence? This is my story, a journey from chaos to calm, from a restless mind to a peaceful soul. You see, I was a prince. Yes, a man who seemingly had it all. Gold that glimmered brighter than the sun, fame that stretched beyond kingdoms, and a life most people would envy. Yet beneath the crown, I carried a storm that never settled. Despite everything I owned, palaces, riches, adoration, something gnawed at my heart. A strange emptiness I couldn't explain. Every morning I would wake to birdsong, but their melody felt hollow. Every evening as the sun dipped behind my grand palace, a sense of loneliness would creep into my chest. It felt as though my mind was an ocean during a storm, waves crashing, thoughts spinning, never still. I smiled for my people, but behind those smiles was a man craving peace, desperately searching for a way to silence the chaos that haunted me. One sleepless night as I paced my chamber, the wind whispered through the windows like a distant voice calling out. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to seek out someone who might hold the answers. I had heard whispers of a wise monk living deep within a mysterious forest far from the noise of kingdoms and courts. They said he had a strange power, a way of seeing the soul and calming even the most turbulent hearts. With nothing left to lose, I ordered my horse to be readied and set out before dawn, chasing a hope I barely believed in. As I rode through the twisting paths of the forest, an eerie quietness surrounded me. No cheering crowds, no advisors whispering in my ear. Only the sound of my horse's hooves against the earth and the occasional cry of a distant bird. The deeper I went, the more I felt like I was leaving behind the man everyone knew, the prince, and becoming something else entirely. When I finally reached the small monastery nestled between ancient trees, my heart pounded in my chest. Would this monk truly help me, or had I journeyed here in vain? The monk greeted me with a calm smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. His eyes, though kind, seemed to see right through me, as if he knew all my struggles without a word spoken. I told him everything, how I had everything yet nothing, how my mind was like a battlefield, always loud, never still. I asked him, "Master, how do I find peace? How do I quiet this storm inside me?" He listened patiently and then said words that puzzled me deeply. "The answers you seek are already within you, but you must learn to listen." "Listen?" I asked, confused. "Master, I've listened to countless advisors, teachers, wise men, and none could still my mind." The monk's smile never faded. "No," he said gently, "you have listened to the world. Now it's time to listen to yourself, and to do that, you must embrace silence." His words struck me like a thunderclap in my chest. Silence? How could silence fix what riches and power could not? But as I looked into his peaceful eyes, something inside me knew. Perhaps this was the answer I had never dared to consider. The monk gave me a task, one that seemed impossible. "For the next 21 days, you will stay here and remain silent," he said firmly. "No speaking unless absolutely necessary. No distractions. You will observe, reflect, and simply be." My mind screamed in protest. How could I, a man who led armies and ruled people, suddenly go silent? But something about the way he spoke, the calm in his voice, made me want to try. Desperation for peace was stronger than fear, and so I agreed, though part of me doubted I could last even a single day. The first day was torture. Without words, I felt as though I was trapped inside my own mind, unable to escape. My thoughts, usually drowned out by constant chatter, now roared louder than ever. Every second stretched into an hour. I paced like a caged lion, craving conversation, anything to fill the silence. But I remembered the monk's warning. If you truly seek peace, you must face the storm within. So I sat in the monastery garden beneath a tree older than time itself, and forced myself to be still, though every muscle in my body screamed to move. By the second day, something began to shift, something subtle, like the first rays of dawn breaking through darkness. With nothing to distract me, I began noticing things I had never seen before. The way the wind danced with the leaves, the soft rustle of branches as birds built their nests. I watched a tiny stream carve its way through rocks, endlessly flowing. And for a moment, I realized I was part of something much bigger, something that had always been there, but I had been too busy to see. a strange sense of connection began to grow within me. As days turned to weeks, a calmness I had never known began to settle over me. By the 15th day, the storm inside had quieted. My thoughts, once like wild horses running free, now moved slowly, gently, like a peaceful river. Meditation became not a task, but a refuge, a place where I could breathe, away from the heavy crown I had always carried. And for the first time, I felt the kind of peace that wealth could never buy, that fame could never give. A silence so profound, it filled me with a strength I had never known before. On the final day, as the sun rose and painted the sky in soft hues of orange and gold, the monk sat beside me, his presence as calm as ever. He looked into my eyes and asked quietly, "What have you discovered during these days of silence?" I took a long breath, feeling the weight of my own answer. "Master," I said slowly, "I've discovered that my restlessness was born from the endless noise I carried within me. Words I spoke without meaning, thoughts that ran wild, fears I never dared to face. Silence helped me see all of this." I confessed to him that I had spent my life hiding behind words used to command, to impress, to avoid facing my own emptiness. I had gossiped about others, judged their lives, filled my days with meaningless chatter to drown my own thoughts. But in these 21 days when I was forced to sit with myself, I realized how much pain I had been carrying, how much I had ignored my own heart. And somehow, by simply being silent, those burdens began to lift. A stillness grew in me, deeper than any treasure I ever owned. The monk nodded, as though he had expected this answer all along. "You see, my prince," he said gently, "many people fear silence because it reveals the truth. They fill their lives with noise, with constant speaking and distractions to avoid what their soul is trying to say. But when we become quiet, we finally hear the voice within, the voice of truth, of peace, of wisdom. Silence is not emptiness, it is full of answers. Only when you quiet the outside world can you hear the deep call of your own spirit." His words sank deep into my heart. As I listened to him speak, I realized how blind I had been. I had searched everywhere, in riches, in power, in fleeting pleasures, for peace, never realizing that the very thing I sought was waiting for me in silence. It wasn't something anyone could give me. It was already inside me, buried under years of noise and distraction. And now that I had tasted this inner stillness, I knew I could never return to the way I lived before. I couldn't go back to being a man ruled by restless thoughts and careless words. I had changed. When I returned to my palace, people noticed something different about me. Where I had once filled every room with loud speeches and commands, I now spoke less, but when I did speak, my words carried weight. People listened, truly listened, because they could feel that my words came from a place of thought and wisdom, not from pride or fear. I no longer wasted energy on pointless arguments or shallow conversations. Instead, I chose my words like a craftsman, choosing the finest stones to build something lasting. And in that quiet strength, I found a new kind of power. In the months that followed, I kept the practice of silence close to me. Every morning, before I faced my royal duties, I would sit in my garden alone, listening to the wind, the birds, and to my own heartbeat. And every evening, when the weight of the crown pressed heavy on my head, I would seek out that same silence to wash away the worries of the day. Silence became my shield, my sanctuary, my secret weapon in a world that never stops talking. I realized that true strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it is found in stillness and calm. As time passed, my people began to change as well. They too started valuing quiet moments, understanding that not every space needed to be filled with words. Disputes that once turned into endless fights now ended in thoughtful discussions. I saw friendships mend, families heal, and my kingdom grow more peaceful, all because I had embraced the simple but powerful act of silence. And I knew then that I had been given a gift I wanted to share with the world, a lesson that could transform anyone, as it had transformed me from within. I realized that silence teaches us something no voice can. It teaches us who we are beneath the masks we wear. In the stillness, I had met myself for the first time. I had faced my fears, my regrets, my hopes and dreams without running from them. And in doing so, I found clarity. I found that the world's noise is like a storm, but if we find the courage to stand still in its center, we will discover a calm place untouched by the winds. And from that place, we can see life more clearly than ever before. Now, whenever life feels overwhelming, when problems seem too heavy or the world grows too loud, I return to that silence. I sit quietly and let the noise of the world fade away. And in those moments, I remember what the monk taught me, that peace is not something we find in riches or in the approval of others. It is something we find when we dare to stop and listen to ourselves, and I wish for everyone to find that same peace. To know that silence is not a void, but a treasure waiting to be discovered. So I share this story with you now, hoping that if you are lost, restless, or overwhelmed like I once was, you will remember this truth. You don't need to chase peace in distant places or in things that never satisfy. Sometimes all you need to do is stop, sit, and be still. Let silence speak to you. Let it heal you. Because inside that quiet is a power greater than words, a power that can guide you home to yourself. And when you find that place, you will never be the same again. Like me, you will finally find peace.